Hey, if you like this, let me know so I can continue doing more lore videos. Now, today's topic is the Strygany. Yes, that's how they're called. Now, see, the Strygany are people that really venerated vampires as gods. And I think they still do. A bunch of good that did them when the Greenskins attacked and destroyed their empire named Strygos, making them flee to the old world. But you see, since they worship vampires, you might understand why people were not that fond of liking them. Now, since nobody liked them, they decided to just be nomads and travel by caravans and boats. They also like boats, apparently. Now, the boat traveling part of the Strygany, they travel along the River Reich, selling whatever they could sell to those more superstitiously inclined. But they didn't just anchor their boats where civilization exists, in towns and cities, because people hated them. Now, of course, this hatred has made some Strygany more open to acting on their beliefs, which is vampire worshipping. Of course, that comes with the repercussion of a witch hunter coming and accusing the boat-traveling Strygany of bringing diseased corpses into town. Now, even if the Strygany could prove they were innocent, well, let's be honest, it was too late for the boat. The boat was just burned. Now, as you'd expect, this lifestyle of hatred has turned them into thieves, cutthroats, and those most despicable of them into necromancers. Of course, some are woodsmen and entertainers, and who would have thought vagabonds, really? No shit. Which is a given, honestly. Now, the Strygany know a lot about vampire lore, and more so the Strygany mystics. They even have an affinity for witchcraft and fortune-telling. Damn. They feel like a certain ethnic minority from my country. Ah well, we'll have to get there. Now, you see, the people of the Empire don't really like them. But if they go to Norska or Kislev, they are more accepted there. Somehow. Why? Well, because the peasants see them as less enigmatic than their ice witches. Which, of course, that's a different problem for the ice witches. Now, people are willing to even pay the Strygany mystics if they favor their fortune, if their readings are good, or if they help them somehow. But as you would expect, the ice witches are not really fond of the mystics. The ice witches don't really like the mystics, the Strygany mystics, since they see them as a threat. Oh, there's another human settlement that we should be talking about, Bretonia. And boy, oh boy, if you thought the Empire was bad. Now, a Strygany mystic is a witch. It doesn't matter what a Strygany mystic does, it's a witch. So, if a Strygany mystic does anything, fortune-telling, or a little bit of magic or witchcraft, then retribution is a matter of how, not if. And by that I mean, they won't really get to survive that long. Now, of course, some might be able to find a better life if they find a noble patron to support them. If they are lucky, of course, because, it doesn't end that well when people hate you. Now, you see, hatred is... Moving on to the next topic. Hatred is justifiable in the Warhammer world and the 40k world. There is a reason to hate the alien, the Xenos, the mutant, whatever. But how did we get here with the Strygany, is the question. Because hatred doesn't really just come into existence. So, let's get to that. Remember, I said they had their own place called Strygos, also written with a Y, sometimes written with a normal E, normal I. So, there they worship vampires. And some people really got a bad experience with the people, with the rulers of Strygos. But let's rewind and go back. Now, the Empire of Strygos was situated in the Strygos Valley, written with a normal I, E, whatever. Which you really think really does say. Who'd have thought? And they were the rulers, and they were ruled by the Strygoi vampires for a shorter period of time, until the Greenskins decided to burn it to the ground. Now, you see, originally the territory that made up Strygos in the Badlands was part of Nehekara, until Nagash decided he didn't like Nehekara and burned it to the ground. Now, you see, that leaves the human tribes that lived in the Badlands leaderless, a little bit lost, until a shaman named Kadon appeared and united them all. But how was he able to do that? Well, you see, now this Kadon was able to do that because one day he found the body of Al-Kadizar, the Conqueror, upon the banks of the Blind River. And Al-Kadizar the Conqueror was the last king of Nehekara, who was grasping at an iron crown in his hand. And that crown was, of course, the crown of sorcery, because bad things have to happen to people in this world. And you see, that made Kadon and his people quite stronger. So strong, in fact, that they decided to make a tomb for Al-Kadizar, grow their settlements, make it strong, make a pyramid, because that's what the crown wanted, and name it Morkane. And in the end decided to start a campaign against the orcs. A campaign that expanded so much and was so good for Kadon and his people that their empire reached the Black Gulf. Now, you see, Kadon wasn't really this perfect being, even though he had the crown of sorcery. Kadon was helped secretly by the first Strygoi, named Ushoran, whatever, until Ushoran became the leader of Strygos. It's really mind-boggling. Now, you see, Kadon left him a good empire. At its height, the Strygos Empire reached from the Marshes of Madness to the Black Gulf. That is quite some distance. Now, you see, the Strygos Empire is responsible for driving the orcs out of the Badlands to the World Edge Mountains. Which is a good thing, right? But this empire is also responsible for spreading necromancy from Araby to the old world. So, adding the worshipping of vampires and having a cult of Nagash, because of course they had that. And also the fact that they spread necromancy everywhere, it doesn't seem that hard to understand why people will still hate them. Even though some people might forget, there is a good reason to hate them. They don't come from the noblest of things, and some Strygany even hoping for their vampire overlords to come and bring them to the promised land again. But going back to the history of the empire, because I really want to talk about how the empire fell, which is probably my favorite way to see an empire fall. It got yeeted by orcs. Now, the empire in Ushoran fell eventually when Wa, led by Dork Red-Eye, decided he had enough of them humies. He was so fed up with them humies that the orc warlord destroyed everything. And when I say destroyed everything, I mean everything. The only things that are now left of the Strygos Empire are some ruins in the Marshes of Madness, and well, the Strygany themselves that fled to the old world. Now, to end this, because the lore to this is a little bit all over the place, and Kadon's own story contradicts itself in like 4 different versions of undead and vampire codexes. Let's go with the fun fact that I saw on the trivia, and I thought it was familiar. Now, you see, the Strygany are gypsies. There is no hiding to that. Their name comes from connecting the word Strygos with the Polish way of saying gypsies. Cyganie. I think I said that right. But I see that is also close to the Romanian way of saying Țigani. And while normal gypsies might not have that huge of a problem of being vampire worshippers in today's age, It really is an interesting fact. Or one that I really liked. So, thank you for watching.